All right, let's dive in. Today, we're exploring the world of LLMs, those large language models everyone's talking about, and specifically how they're being used to unlock information from medical reports, all while keeping that patient data secure right inside the hospital's own network.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing when you think about it. We're talking millions and millions of medical reports, just this incredible wealth of knowledge. And up until now, it's been so hard to really use it effectively. But LLMs could completely change that. Research, diagnosis, even how we develop AI for healthcare
Yeah.
could all be revolutionized.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I was just reading about this doctor who was trying to find patients for a clinical trial. They had a very specific lung abnormality they were looking for,
Hmm.
and they were going through thousands of these chest x-ray reports manually. It was taking them forever. Can you imagine?
Oh, I can, yeah. It's a problem we see all the time in medicine, unfortunately. Like radiology reports, they're usually written as free text. No standard structure, so searching and analyzing all that data is a nightmare.
Yeah.
Like trying to find a needle in a haystack,
Mhm.
especially if you're trying to study the effects of a treatment over time, or you want to see trends in a large group of patients.
Right. So before LLMs came along, how were doctors and researchers even dealing with this?
Well, they had these things called rule-based systems. Basically, they use programmed rules to search for specific keywords. So, for example, a rule might be to flag any report that mentions effusion, to find patients with fluid in their lungs.
Okay, so that sounds pretty straightforward. What's the problem with that?
Well, the thing is, human language is complicated,
Mm.
and medical terms can be even trickier. A report might describe fluid buildup without using that exact word, effusion.
I see.
So the rule-based system is kind of rigid, right? It might miss those important cases.
Yeah, so context is everything, and that's where LLMs have the advantage.
Exactly. They're like
Yeah.
super-powered text analyzers,
Hmm.
trained on mountains of data, so they can really understand the nuances of language,
Yeah.
context, different ways of saying the same thing. They can pick up on all of that. And that lets them extract information with a level of accuracy we just couldn't get before.
That's amazing. And there's this whole open versus closed thing with LLMs that seems really important, especially with sensitive medical information. Can you break that down for us? What's the difference and why does it matter so much for privacy?
Sure. So with open-weight LLMs, researchers can actually see the model's code. So hospitals can install them locally on their own servers, which is huge for controlling the data.
So the patient data never has to leave the hospital's network then?
Exactly. It never has to leave that secure environment.
That's incredible.
And that's a big difference from those closed models, where you often have to send data to an external server for processing. This way, the hospital stays in control.
Oh, I can see why that would be a huge relief for everyone. Now, there's a study that really caught my eye. It's called Privacy Ensuring Open Weights. Large language models are competitive with closed weights GPT-4o in extracting chest radiography findings from free text reports. It seems like they were really putting those open weight models to the test. What can you tell us about it?
Well, this study, it was done by Nowak and his team. They really wanted to see just how powerful these open-weight LLMs could be. They looked at 17 different open models, analyzing chest X-ray reports in both English and German. And get this, to compare, they used the Chexpert system, the rule-based one that's considered the gold standard.
Wow.
And they even included GPT-4o from OpenAI, that's a closed model.
Okay, so some serious competition then. How do they do?
The results were really impressive, actually. Some of the open-weight models were just as good as GPT-4o at identifying specific conditions. But here's the kicker all, 17 of them did better than the Chexpert system.
Wow. That's pretty remarkable. So it really seems like open weight LLMs have the potential to make a big impact, especially in radiology. But what about accuracy? I mean, can we trust these models to handle such sensitive information?
Well, that's where fine-tuning comes in. It's basically taking the LLM and training it further, but on a very specific set of data.
Yeah.
In this case, it would be accurately labeled chest X-ray reports.
Okay.
And this lets the model really learn the details and language used in that area. It gets much more accurate.
So it's like giving the LLM a crash course in radiology.
Exactly. And the researchers found that you don't even need that many reports for fine-tuning to make a big difference. It really improves accuracy.
Hmm.
This means hospitals could even fine-tune these models using their own data. They could create specialized models just for their needs.
It's amazing, right? We can actually give these LLMs specialized knowledge to make them even more powerful.
Yeah, and the exciting part is we're really just getting started. Identifying things in reports, that's just the first step. LLMs can do so much more to improve patient care.
That's what's so fascinating to me. It's not just theory, right? This is stuff that could actually help people in the real world.
hmm
What are some examples of how this might play out in like a hospital setting?
Well, think about it. An LLM could not only detect something like a pneumothorax in a report, a collapsed lung,
Right.
it could actually tell you how bad it is based on what the radiologist wrote.
Oh,
And
wow.
then that information could be used to alert the doctors if it's a really serious case. Make sure the patient gets the right care fast.
It's like having this extra layer of safety built in, like a tireless assistant, always looking for problems. But it's important to say, these LLMs aren't replacing doctors, are they?
Oh, definitely not. They're tools, right?
Right.
They're there to help doctors make better decisions, give them more information, but the final call, that always has to be with a human expert.
It's a partnership then between human experience and this incredibly powerful AI. And it goes beyond just diagnosis too, right? I mean, what about using them to create personalized treatment plans based on like someone's whole medical history and the latest research?
Absolutely. LLMs could totally change how we approach treatment. Imagine an LLM that looks at everything in a patient's record. Past diagnoses, treatments, allergies, genetics, you name it, even their lifestyle. And then it compares that to all the newest research to come up with the best treatment options just for them.
That's incredible. It's like having this super smart medical advisor always learning and giving you the most up-to-date personalized care.
And that's the thing, they're constantly learning. More data they see, the better they get at spotting patterns and making connections. It just keeps getting better.
So we've been talking a lot about chest x-rays. I'm curious, could these LLMs work with other types of medical records too? Like, what about pathology reports or EKG readings or even like handwritten doctor's notes?
Oh, absolutely. It's not just limited to radiology.
Yeah.
LLMs can analyze all kinds of stuff. Structured data like EKGs, complicated pathology reports, even those messy handwritten notes. They can handle it.
So you could have an LLM that analyzes someone's entire medical history going back years from all these different sources and use that to maybe identify risk factors or even predict the likelihood of developing certain conditions.
Yeah, exactly. And don't forget about research. LLMs can help researchers find trends and patterns in huge groups of patients. That could lead to all sorts of new discoveries and breakthroughs, better treatments.
It sounds like LLMs could have a huge impact on every level of healthcare, from individual care to those big medical advancements. But I'm also curious about the practical side. How are these things actually being used in hospitals right now?
Well, it's still early days, but there are some really promising examples already. Some hospitals are using them to pre-screen reports. They flag the ones that need a doctor's attention right away.
Oh, that makes sense.
It can be a huge time saver, especially in a busy ER where every second counts.
It must be a big help to doctors who are already so busy. Are there any other areas where they're making a difference?
Oh yeah, for sure. Some places are using them for those tedious administrative tasks, like coding and billing, which can be super complicated and take forever.
Right.
It frees up more time for doctors to focus on patient care.
So it's making the whole healthcare system more efficient, not just improving patient care. That's great. But with any new tech, there are always going to be challenges, right? What are some of the things that still need to be figured out before LLMs can truly reach their potential in healthcare?
Well, one of the big ones is data integration. A lot of times, healthcare data is all over the place, different systems. So it's hard to get a complete picture of a patient's history.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle with some of the pieces missing, right?
Exactly. We need to make those systems talk to each other better. That way, the LLMs can access all the info they need to make good assessments.
Makes sense. And of course, there's data security and patient privacy. That's always going to be a top concern when we're talking about sensitive information like this.
Absolutely. That's one of the reasons why being able to install those open weight models locally is so important.
Mhm.
Hospitals can control the data and keep it safe within their network.
So, OpenWeight is not just about being accurate and efficient, it's also about peace of mind for everyone. Knowing that data is protected. It seems like the future of LLMs in healthcare is really bright, but like with any powerful tool, we have to be aware of the limitations and potential problems too. What are some of the risks that you see with LLMs in healthcare?
I think one risk is that people start relying on them too much. Remember, they're tools, not crystal balls. Doctors shouldn't blindly follow what an LLM says without thinking carefully about everything going on with the patient.
So it's about finding the right balance, using LLMs to make better decisions, but not letting them make those decisions for us. What other potential problems should we be aware of?
Yeah, it's definitely a balancing act, isn't it? We have these incredible tools, but we can't forget about the human element. It's about combining the best of both worlds.
Absolutely. And it's really exciting to see how this field is developing. People are pushing the boundaries all the time.
Speaking of pushing boundaries, what are some of the latest developments in LLMs that have you really excited about the future of healthcare? Well, one thing that's really caught my attention is multimodal LLMs. So you know how we've been talking about how good LLMs are at analyzing text?
Right.
Well, multimodal ones can actually handle lots of different types of information, like images, videos, even data from sensors.
So instead of just reading about an X-ray in a report, the LLM can actually look at the image itself.
Exactly. And by combining what it sees in the image with what's in the report, it can get even more accurate diagnoses. Imagine an LLM that not only sees a fracture, but can tell you how bad it is and where it is. And it factors in the radiologist's notes and the patient's history, too.
Wow, that's amazing. It's like giving the LLM a much deeper understanding of what's going on. Are there any other areas of research that you're excited about?
Oh, definitely. Another big one is using LLMs to create what's called synthetic medical data. So it's like artificial data, but it looks just like real patient data, except it doesn't have any identifying information.
Oh, interesting.
It's like having this virtual group of patients that researchers can use to train and test new AI algorithms, but they don't have to worry about patient privacy.
I can see how that would be super useful. It's like a safe testing ground where they can really refine things before using it in the real world. And wouldn't it help with that problem of not having enough data for certain types of research?
Exactly. Synthetic data could be a game changer for developing new medical AI. And as these multimodal synthetic data-powered LLMs get more sophisticated, well, I think they could lead to truly personalized medicine. Treatments tailored to each person's genes, lifestyle, their medical history.
It's incredible to think about, right? An LLM that can create a model of your body, analyze all your data, predict your risks, and then recommend personalized preventative measures or treatments.
That's the dream, right? To move away from that one-size-fits-all approach,
Yeah.
to make healthcare truly focused on the individual.
It really is. And it seems like LLMs are a big part of making that happen. But before we wrap up, I want to go back to something we talked about earlier, the ethical side of using LLMs in healthcare. As we keep developing these powerful tools, how can we make sure they're used responsibly and ethically?
That's such an important question. And it's something that everyone working in this field, like researchers, developers, doctors, we're all thinking about it very carefully. I think transparency is key. Patients need to understand how their data is being used and how AI is playing a role in their care.
Right, it's about building trust and making sure patients feel like they're in control.
Exactly. And we also have to make sure these LLMs are being developed and used fairly. We have to watch out for biases in the data that might lead to some patients not benefiting as much as others.
It sounds like a lot of work still needs to be done, but it's clear that LLMs have the potential to do so much good.
I completely agree. It's a really exciting time to be working in this field. And I think if we plan carefully, collaborate, and stay focused on those ethical principles, LLMs can help us create a healthier and more equitable future for everyone.
Well said. Thanks for taking us on this journey into the world of LLMs in healthcare. This has been incredibly insightful, and I'm sure our listeners are as fascinated by the possibilities as we are.
It's been my pleasure. And remember, the future of healthcare is being shaped right now. Your curiosity and engagement are so important to make sure these technologies benefit all of humanity.